I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. This edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane is brought to you by Comcast, working to bridge the digital divide through Internet essentials and partnering with organizations across Twin Cities to help make our region an even better place to live, work, and play. Established in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1994, the inspiration for Tickets for Kids came to founder Susan Weiner during a ball game. The empty seats seemed so wasteful and so unnecessary. Couldn't these seats be filled by the community's disadvantaged kids? A nearly identical idea occurred in 2000 to Rob Neuenschwinder, a Twin Cities resident and avid University of Minnesota Gophers basketball fan. Frustrated that so many game seats went unused, Rob founded the Minneapolis-based Tickets for Tots to fill those seats with kids and mentors who could use them. Recognizing a shared vision and nearly identical missions, Tickets for Tots was merged into Tickets for Kids in 2016. So in January of 2019, another like-missioned nonprofit, the New York-based Seats of Dreams, was merged into Tickets for Kids National Network. Through partnerships with approved and vetted nonprofits serving disadvantaged kids and families, TFK, Tickets for Kids, has distributed more than 3 million tickets valued in excess of $64.1 million for experiences in arts and culture, in education and STEM, in sports and recreation, and family entertainment. In 2018 alone, the TFK distribution included more than 192,000 tickets valued at over $6 million, and it partnered with nonprofit organizations in 31 states. That's an impressive story, and I'm pleased to talk about what that means in Minnesota with my guest, Susan Murray. Susan Murray is the Regional Director, Twin Cities, for Tickets for Kids. Susan, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this is a powerful idea, and it's growing. And you can testify about the importance and the power of sharing and giving. Talk about that.
Yeah, you know, Tickets for Kids really believes that experiences matter, and they matter for every child in our community, not just the ones privileged enough to be able to afford the opportunities like seeing a ball game, going to the zoo, going to the science museum, or even the opera or orchestra. So we really strive to make that available to every kid and impact and create those memories and spark an interest for every kid in our community.
You have a particular interest in reaching underprivileged kids or kids in ethnic communities. What's the story?
Yeah, so we only partner with social service agencies, schools, and government programs that serve at least 70% low-income youth. So we really try to reach out to kids in every neighborhood of the Twin Cities and even greater Minnesota that just don't have the opportunity to leave their neighborhoods. We hear stories all the time of kids that grew up in St. Paul and have never been to downtown Minneapolis, or grew up in North Minneapolis and never been to downtown St. Paul. So we really try to break down those barriers and get kids access to all of these different experiences, and our ticket donors utilize us for that purpose.
You must have some wonderful stories about, well, you talked to me before the show about last night, actually yesterday. Tell me about that again. That's a great story.
So our generous supporter, PNC Bank, was able to get a meet and greet with ballet artist Misty Copeland last night. So last night we were able to bring 8 wonderful little girls from the Boys and Girls Clubs in St. Paul, and they got a meet and greet with Misty. They got to give her a hug. They got to take a picture and then listen to her inspiring story about how she grew up, how she got into arts, and why arts is so important to every kid out there, just to have them experience it.
Any more stories like that? Just stories that open up, you know, our minds to the value of getting these experiences to families and kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, I have hundreds of them. All of our kids report back to us after every experience. I think one of my favorite opportunities was last February 2018, the Children's Theater was doing a production of The Wiz. The Children's Theater realized that this was a really important opportunity for the kids we serve, for the agencies we serve, for a lot of the kids we work with to get people that look like them on stage and really be inspired by that. So we were able to get a few hundred tickets to the Wiz donated to us. We don't purchase any tickets whatsoever. And kids from the community got to go to that performance, and they said over and over and how inspired they were. And they brought it back to their community. So even the kids and the families that didn't get to go, some of the kids from a neighborhood center in North Minneapolis set up a movie showing night of the movie of the Wiz. And they had conversations about it and celebrated together. And it was just a fantastic cultural experience that the Children's Theater realized was really, really important for us to get out there. And they wouldn't have been able to reach as many people in the community as we can with our network of 250 nonprofit organizations we currently work with.
So that's a phenomenal multiplier effect in several ways, I think. One, you're getting to consumers, children, giving them a chance to connect, but you're also affecting their family, sisters and brothers. You're also affecting the neighborhood because you're creating interest and conversation and engagement, and in doing so you broaden horizons, right? You open up the window of opportunity and allow children, encourage them to see the world differently than they may have been able to do because they didn't have the access that other kids often have. And so you're demonstrating the power of access, and you're demonstrating the power of paying attention to, things we often take for granted, but we shouldn't.
Right.
And you've created a mechanism for intentional engagement and support of children's dreaming, et cetera. So, you mentioned some of your partners, mention some others, because it's great that companies step up. What other organizations do you distribute tickets for? That's number one.
Yeah.
And I don't have any problem with you giving credit to some of your sponsoring partner stakeholders.
I'd love to.
It's important to do that.
Yeah, so like I said, none of the tickets that we get are purchased. They are all donated to us. So we have partnerships with most of the major sports teams. The Minnesota Twins are fantastic partners of ours, the Timberwolves, the Lynx. We've also partnered with both orchestras, the Minnesota Orchestra, the St. Paul Chamber Orchestras, the Minnesota Opera, the Ordway, the Hennepin Theater Trust, who all realize that they need to make their art forms more accessible to different types of people, and that also make sure the kids and the families feel welcome in those spaces. So not just opening the door, but how do we make them interact and feel like they belong there? That's
so cool.
Yeah.
And so it recognizes the shifting demographics.
It does.
The market of the future is different.
Yes.
It's browner.
Yes.
It's multilingual, multi-ethnic.
It is.
And so you can't just look at who used to be in the audience and assume that they'll be there forever. Yes. It's changed. And to the degree that an organization recognizes the change is coming and reaches out with intentionality again, that I think ensures their both survival and the vitality of their mission of service and of creativity to the community, to the market that's growing. That's what I think. But I think it's important, too, to have kids experience the opera, for example. And so kids should not have the feeling that the opera is not for them, or that the orchestra is not for them, or that they can only be interested in rock and roll, or only in the blues, R&B, or pop. And so you're sort of building cultural bridges in the process, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the wonderful staff at the orchestras and the opera get that too. The first time I reached out to them to see if we could provide these opportunities, they happily said yes. They happily said, wonderful, how can we get more kids involved in this? And how can we make it accessible? So that also means creating frequently asked questions about what to expect when I go to an opera. When do I clap at an opera? When do I stand up? When do I go? What time do I show up? So all those educational purposes to make sure that they're not...
Real practical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And then also organizations even like the Minnesota Zoo and the Science Museum of Minnesota. We've started relationships with the Bakken Museum as well in order to have the mutual benefit there of not only getting kids to the Bakken, but getting the Bakken to the community as well and promoting that for them. And then, even our business partners in the community have actually really grasped onto this. So Urban Air Adventure Park in Coon Rapids is one of our best partners. They donate so many passes a month to allow kids into that space. Same with GameWorks at the Mall of America. Valley Fair will be a partner of ours this year.
Super.
So the business community says, you know what? Yeah, we need to get every kid in here, even if they can't necessarily afford it. They deserve to be able to enjoy our space.
And it starts from the simple recognition from Susan Weiner and Rob Neuenschwander.
Yes,
It's a shame to waste these seats.
it is.
There's this wonderful experience. There's this wonderful venue, wonderful event, and it ought to be enjoyed.
Yes.
And we shouldn't let whatever it is that has these seats empty
Exactly.
stand. And so you reach out and you bring people in that should enjoy that.
Exactly.
That's a wonderful idea. How do you come to this work? What's your own personal story?
Sure. So I actually started out working for about 10 years in residential treatment centers. So I worked with adjudicated youth that were kind of one step before prison, kids that had a really hard upbringing, lots of mental health problems, chemical dependency problems. And I really fell in love with working with teenagers and hearing their story and helping them, right? So I enjoyed that. After about 10 years, I needed a little bit of a change, so I decided to go to corporate for a few years. Learned a lot of really helpful business skills, really helpful marketing skills, things like that, but felt a little bit disconnected from my community. So I went back to grad school, got a degree there, and then found this perfect position with Tickets for Kids. I cannot believe that my job is to meet cool people and make kids happy, but it is, so that's pretty remarkable.
So what are your degrees and what's your training?
Yeah, so I have a BS in psychology from the University of Minnesota Duluth, and then I just completed my master's in public and nonprofit administration from Metropolitan State University.
Okay. And so as you think about the work you've done and develop your vision for your future, what are your hopes, your aspirations? What do you want to deliver of value to community, to your profession, to your own training, but to humanity? That's a big question.
Oh,
What
my
are your-
goodness.
What are your thoughts?
That is a big question. You know, one of the reasons I started grad school is from working from nonprofits and seeing the resources that were available to nonprofits and then moving to a large global corporation, there was just such a divide in resources. And it just broke my heart that, you know, it was so hard to get all the resources to help kids that, you know, were really our future, but yet there was a lot of resources in corporate that were being a little bit wasted, but I don't think it was intentional or even know that they were wasted. So I started my master's program hoping that I could bring some of my business skills to nonprofits and bring some of my nonprofit heart to businesses as well. So I wanted to bring those together. I think personally moving forward with Tickets for Kids is just the perfect opportunity to do that because everyone thinks about the kids, right? Everyone thinks of this is an amazing experience for kids, which it is, and that is the first thing. But also, when I worked in nonprofit organizations, we didn't have the budget to take kids to a movie. We could never take kids to a ball game, anything like that. So being that Tickets for Kids supports about 250 nonprofit organizations, it really helps them too. So one of the mentoring organizations we work with has bluntly said to us, our program wouldn't work very well without your program.
Wow.
We ask mentors not to spend a ton of money on their youth, but it's hard for adults and kids to bond over a table sometimes. Sometimes they need a little something extra and some shared interests. So personally, it brings a lot of passion that we can help the nonprofit community in that way, and then help the arts institutions like we were just talking about, the orchestras, the opera, the science museum, all these organizations realize that demographics are changing.
Right.
So we're supporting other nonprofits,
That's
right, which are the arts,
And supporting,
to
the
so it's a whole ecosystem.
everybody wins.
Everybody wins. You know,
wins,
this is kind of the easiest mission in the world to sell because everyone believes in kids getting access. The business world's promoting it.
Susan Murray, how can ordinary families and community people support your work? I think being aware of it is one thing, so hopefully this conversation is one of the tools you use to acquaint our listeners and viewers. But what else can ordinary people do to support the work of Tickets for Kids?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of ways. So number one, check out our website at ticketsforkids.org, as well as our social media pages. We're always putting opportunities on there for how people can get a little bit involved. And then a lot of it is just speaking to other people. We want to become a household name. We want to make sure that everybody is aware of our mission. So there's lots of different ways. Yes, we get tickets from these institutions, but individuals can donate tickets too. So if you ever have tickets to a ball game or a theater performance that you can't use, we can put kids in those seats that would have never had that experience.
And what if families want to go somewhere but just don't know how to get there? Do they call you or call the neighborhood organization? How do they get in queue?
Yep. So in order to be able to distribute as many tickets as we possibly can, we'll do at least 30,000 in Minnesota this year. We partner specifically with nonprofits, schools, and government agencies. So a great way for families to get involved is get involved in your local nonprofits, whether that's stopping in at a Boys and Girls Club or a mentoring program or even one of the community centers. So we work right now with almost all of the Minneapolis Park and Rec centers, hoping to create the same relationship with the St. Paul Rec centers to get these opportunities out there. So we try to make them as available as possible. Schools, nonprofits, government agencies can go to our website and learn how to sign up to participate in the program. One of the things that I think is a little bit most shocking about this is there's no cost associated with it.
That's wonderful.
We get all the tickets at no cost. We distribute all the tickets to these agencies at no cost whatsoever. So, of course, in order for our ability to expand the program, I'm proud of 30,000 tickets a year. That's great, but we know that there's 200,000 kids in Minnesota every year who are food insecure. And we know that they're also not going to the zoo. They're not going to ball games if they can't afford food, right? So in order for our mission to be able to reach as many kids, we need the financial support as well to be able to build up the infrastructure to do that. So that's obviously some way that people can contribute.
Let's give the website.
Yeah. So it's www.ticketsforkids.org.
Susan, Mary, thank you so very much. Continued success in your program. I'm excited. You know, I love that this is a way that brings the community full circle, full cycle, where you have arts organizations and community organizations, you have companies, you have businesses that are promoting an event, and you have parents and families that get a chance to enjoy those events by being a part of community organizations.
Exactly.
Everything fits in place.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. Thanks to Susan Mary, who's the Regional Director of Twin Cities for Tickets for Kids. Now, if you like this conversation, like us on Facebook and share this program. We want to deliver what we call robust conversation. I think this certainly qualifies. Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane.